TCU will have a fight on their hands in keeping four-star wide receiver Brock Boyd in the fold.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by Gametime. If you need Super Bowl tickets, check out the Gametime app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We've been talking a lot about the 2026 class over the past couple of weeks. TCU has done a great job getting commitments, almost exclusively on the defensive line, edge rushers, also hand in the ground, defensive ends. But I wanted to highlight today a young man that committed back in the summer of 2024, almost a year ago, Brock Boyd, who is a wide receiver at South Lake Carroll. He's a 3-star prospect according to 247 Sports, a 4-star composite. So the composite rating 247 takes on 3 rivals, a little bit of everybody. And he's a 4-star in that regard, 3-star on 247 Sports. But wide receiver at South Lake Carroll, listen to these numbers from his junior season. This is absolutely ridiculous. 111 receptions, 1,875 yards, and 20 touchdowns. Now, when Brock committed, it was, like I said, the summer of 2024. So I discussed it, but in that moment in time, we were getting ready for the football season that was upcoming. TCU was still heavily pursuing guys for the 2025 class. So I felt like it kind of got buried in the news cycle. And I wanted to bring it back up when we're talking about 2026 commits. One, because Brock is just a really special player. You look at the tape, you watch the film, the highlights from his junior season. It's almost 7 minutes long. But like I said, he had over 1,800 yards, almost 1,900 yards receiving, 20 touchdowns, and he does a little bit of everything. His measurables, he is 6'1", and he's listed at 165 on his prospect page, but I saw on social media he lists himself at 185, so it looks like he's put on some weight since the last time he's been to a camp or some sort of event where they did height and weight. He's an outside wide receiver. They'll move him around a little bit, but he is primarily working on the outside of the formation. Good route runner, can go up and make a contested catch. The first highlight you see on his junior season tape is he's running an out route. A corner tries to undercut it. He just skies for the football, catches it, lands on his feet, turns upfield, and takes it to the house. He's got good speed and good athleticism. He's used on kickoff return. He's used on special teams. He gets yardage after the catch. They'll move him inside in the slot at times, and he'll just make a quick step on a slant, plant that outside foot, come back inside, catch the ball, and get up the field. Does a really good job tracking the football, making plays. And there are multiple moments where he makes DBs look silly. Just very good at selling routes. Fluid with his movements, going one way, cutting the other, and seems to have a great feel for the game. Another player, one theme that I really like with this 2026 class so far, South Lake Carroll in Brock Boyd's case. Some other guys, Summer Creek, Lake Travis, Arlington Martin, Austin Westlake. And this might seem obvious, well, of course, they're going to get players that are super productive at the high school level. But it's not only the fact that they're landing guys who are putting up good numbers. In my mind, it's the fact that they're doing it at the 6A level and at the highest levels of 6A. We're talking about some of the most recognizable programs in the state of Texas that are playing really tough competition on a week-in, week-out basis, and they're still making it happen. When Brock committed, I wouldn't say he was an unknown commodity. He was a 3-star rated prospect. It wasn't like TCU. The coaching staff has done a good job through the years since Sonny took over of, I think, finding guys with what we would call high ceilings. Like maybe they haven't been scouted too much yet or they don't have a big offer sheet, but TCU lands them. And then as the recruiting cycle plays out, you see everyone else kind of catch up and say, oh, TCU was on to something here. I think a big part of that is what they do with camps, junior days, and all those things. But Brock wasn't like an unknown commodity. He had a pretty solid offer list. I have noticed, following him on social media over the past few weeks, he recently got offered by Ohio State, Kentucky, Kansas State. He already had offers from Arizona, Boston College, a bunch of other schools. When you're putting up almost 1,900 yards in a season, that will happen. I expect him to have a big senior season, and I don't know what his plan is as far as camps go and what he's going to do this offseason to put himself out there more. I would imagine Brock Boyd's going to get some more notable offers, and he'll have a lot of attention on him over the coming months and into next football season. So the challenge for TCU now, you've had this guy committed for a long time. Keeping him on board with this recruiting class and with this school is going to be what Sonny Dykes and Malcolm Kelly and the rest of the offensive coaching staff are going to have to do in the future, right? Now, I don't have inside information on that. I'm not saying that he's wavering. I don't know. I'm just noticed like suddenly he's getting a lot more attention from big name schools. Now, it wasn't during the offseason. I think it was during the bye week this year before maybe the Arizona game. Sonny was asking at a press conference, what are your priorities in the transfer portal? What position group are you going to be searching after? And he was very adamant that wide receiver was going to be a spot where they were looking to find talent. And they called their shot there. They went and got Jordan Dwyer, who had a great year at Idaho at the FCS level this past season. They also got Joseph Manjack, who has had a nice career at Houston, and before that played at USC. So they've got some immediate impact guys. And I think TCU has a lot to sell when it comes to this wide receiver spot. You look at what happened with Jack Besh, and he's doing a great job at the Senior Bowl. You look what happened with Savion Williams. And there's a long list through the years. Quentin Johnson, Darius Davis, Jalen Rager, John Diarse. I mean, I know I'm forgetting people. Don't type angrily and say, well, what about this person? For the sake of time, I'm not going to keep listing names. But you guys understand that there's been a long list of TCU wide receivers that have had great college careers, gone on to get drafted in the NFL. They're going to throw the ball a lot with Josh Hoover, right? We know that much. Now, Brock will most likely be playing with another quarterback. Bottom line is they've done a good job with wideouts. And I also think wide receiver is a spot where there's a lot of talent. That being said, I don't think you can get arrogant or complacent about what you've done in the past. Well, yes, I think this coaching staff has a good track record of developing wideouts. We're not that far removed. I mean, that 5-7 season where Chandler Morris was your starter for half the year and you're coming off the playoff win and things just went horribly wrong. That receiving core had a lot of promise, but it did not end up being very good. I mean, Savion Williams sort of figured it out in the second half of the year. And a lot of this was because of injuries. There was a reason behind it. You know, JoJo Earl was banged up. Warren Thompson was banged up at times. The receiver from UCF, he was at UCF and then Ole Miss, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name now. But he didn't have the season that we expected. Dalen Wright was in and out of the rotation. So there were logical reasons as to why it didn't work. But while we could look at last year and say, well, hey, regardless of who you have on the field, TCU is going to find a way to have productive wideouts. I think it's also worth noting, like Savion Williams and Jack Besh are going to be NFL guys. TCU had a hand in that. They had a role in that. But it also speaks to the fact that those dudes are just really talented. They're very versatile. And they can make things happen. And so you're losing that production. You replaced it with guys that show a lot of promise, but you got to prove it on the field again. And when you have a talent like this in Brock Boyd, you got to make sure that you make him a priority. Because, man, watching this film, like, he just looks like a dude. He makes catch after catch. He finds the end zone. He's got good speed. He can go up and get the football. He tracks the ball well. He wins those 50-50 matchups, one-on-one matchups. He runs routes exceedingly well for a high school junior going into his senior season. There's a lot to love here. And this is a good problem to have. I mean, this is what you want to happen. Like, you want your commits to get attention from other programs. And you want people to you want other coaching staffs. I mean, and maybe you don't want this, but I think it's nice for other coaching staffs to confirm, like, hey, that was a good evaluation. You did a good job finding this guy early in the process or getting this guy to commit early in the process. Now, can you hold on? Can you find a way to make sure he knows you're a priority and we want you to be part of this team and this program moving forward? That's where TCU finds themselves after Brock Boyd had an outstanding junior year, and I would imagine he's going to have a really good offseason and probably a great senior season as well. So it's a good problem to have, but it is something to watch as he gets attention elsewhere. When we come back, TCU basketball cannot throw the ball in the ocean. Gametime. Download the Gametime app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Attending an NFL playoff game is an experience like no other. And another one of the kind of experience would be attending a Super Bowl. Energy, excitement, the connection with other fans, it's unmatched. The thrill of seeing your favorite team win a Super Bowl, win a playoff game live, that's something you'll never forget. Gametime, they have Gametime picks for upcoming playoff games, and it makes it super easy to find the best deal. You can find a super deal that gives you an incredible value for your seats. You can even preview the view from your spot before buying. The all-in price is a game changer. No surprise fees at checkouts. Their fees, but Gametime tells you what they are up front. They're honest about it. They have curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. Seat views before you buy, on-time ticket delivery. It goes straight to your phone, straight to the app. Event cancellation protection. All of that good stuff is there and available on the Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, it wasn't that long ago. It was a week and a half ago that TCU basketball was coming off a very exciting and encouraging win over Baylor in Waco at Foster Pavilion. Brendan Wenzel hit a three with about 5 seconds left to win that ball game. And you thought to yourself, hey, maybe this team has something. Maybe they've turned a corner. They were coming off an embarrassing loss to Utah. That was a great victory. Well, they followed that up with a game against Kansas where they competed for a lot of it, but ultimately fell short, got away from them in the second half. They completely blow a tire in Orlando against UCF. They go on the road, another tough environment, playing Texas Tech tonight, and they fall on this one as well. Final score 71-57. I hate to sound like a broken record, but there's really nowhere else to start other than the fact that TCU is just a bad shooting team right now. They really struggle to create offense. Even when they get good shots, it's hard for them to knock it down. The shooting numbers tonight, 27% from three, an upgrade from the 5% over the weekend, but 5 of 18 overall, 54% from the line, 35% from the field. Man, 54% from the line. There were multiple chances where TCU had opportunities to take a lead, cut it to 1, cut it to 2, and they just clanged free throw after free throw. But all that being said, Brendan Wenzel hit a three with about 15 minutes left to give this team a 39-38 lead, and they had hung around. I thought the energy and effort were much improved tonight. I felt like they played with a lot of enthusiasm, which is, I mean, yes. Is that kind of the baseline thing you expect? Sure. But it was another instance. I think you saw this in the Baylor game too. They had an embarrassing loss to Utah, and you could tell like there was urgency coming out of the locker room, playing on the road, all those things. It felt the same way against Texas Tech, and that allowed them to hang around the first half. Tech would push it to 8, push it to 10, but then TCU would quickly get right back in it. They were down by 3 at halftime. But it's just so tough when you turn the ball over and when you can't get quality shots. And I mean, not a horrible night turning it over, only 8 turnovers, but 3 or 4 of those were in the first 5 or 6 minutes, which really stifled the offense. Your leading scorer tonight was Noah Reynolds. He had 14, but it was on 6 of 15 shooting. Bashan Ouellette was 1 of 7 from the field. Trezarian White was 1 of 5 from the field. He had a critical 2 missed free throws late in that game where I think he could have cut it to 5. TCU cut it to 7 with like 4 minutes left. He could have cut it to 5 and given them or maybe he could have cut it to 7. But you get my point. Like they were starting to get within striking distance. He misses a couple free throws, and Tech finally got their legs under him again and hit some shots. They had another one of those, just long scoring droughts in this one. I mean, I don't know what's going to change here. The Frankie Collins injury was really a huge blow to this team. Wenzel had a tough night shooting the basketball. I mean, even the guys that are supposed to be like your dude shooting the ball can't do it. It was 11 minutes, but I did like some of the stuff I saw from Isaiah Manning tonight. He had 6 points. He had a tough contested 2 on after timeout, like running the play, an inbound pass from under the basket. He came around, made a play. Also liked what I saw from Malik Diallo. 8 points in 16 minutes, had 6 rebounds, played pretty good defense. But they just don't have it at the moment. Ernest Uday had a rough night, 1 point in 24 minutes. JT Toppin for Tech was super impressive. I think he ended up with 16, 18, and it was pretty much all around the rim. There was one possession in the first half where he caught the ball in the high post a little, and it was not at the free throw line, it was a little in front of it. He got the ball in the high post, and David Punch did a great job. Like he cut him off. He tried to go to his left. Punch cut him off. He went back, or he tried to go to his right. Punch cut him off. He went back to his left. But David stayed with him. He moved his feet well. He contested the shot, and Toppin went up with his left hand and just put the ball into the goal. Banked it off the backboard and put it in. And that was kind of a microcosm of trying to guard him when TCU tried to guard him tonight. He also got to the free throw line 6 times and hit all 6 free throws. So he was really impressive. I mean, that's a good Tech team. But when it's your 3rd loss in a row, it doesn't feel great, right? You get Colorado next, who they're really struggling. You play them on Sunday. West Virginia, kind of the same story, but then Iowa State. I mean, there's not much of a break. The Big 12 is not as good as it's been in years past, but there's not a break here where you're going to be able to rip off 4 or 5 wins in a row, at least on paper. And this doesn't feel like a season. I don't think they'll even get to this, but this does not feel like a season where if you win 9 games, you're a lock like you've been in the past, especially with the ugly non-conference losses. And so, again, I kind of come back to the question, like, at what point do you really let these young guys loose? Like, why is Micah Robinson's minutes continuing to go down? Why are we not seeing more Manning and Posey? I know they've struggled, but at this point, like, what do you have to lose? You're not winning these ball games. Your team is struggling. Why not get them some run and just see, like, what you got? Because I think the biggest priority now for the TCU team is to evaluate what you have and to make sure, like, those young guys feel valued and feel like they're part of this, because you need to keep David Punch around. You need to keep Micah Robinson around. That's going to be the core of your team in the future. And maybe go add some transfers with them, but you need those players to solidify what you're doing down the stretch. We understood this was a rebuilding year. I think it's gotten darker than we expected. And the Collins injury has something to do with it, but also this team just, I mean, even when he was healthy, they never really found their sea legs. And there's still time, but it doesn't look promising again rough loss to Tech. I thought the defense was pretty solid overall. I mean, Tech shot 46%. They scored 71 points. And Tech's known for their defense, and that showed tonight against an offensively challenged TCU team. But the men play Colorado on Sunday. Women will get Iowa State names in a big matchup for them as they continue to kind of work through the teams, at least in the beginning of the season, that we thought were going to be the power players in Big 12 wins hoops. And so far, that is proven to be the case. So they don't have a midweek game, though. They get some time off, which should be good for Mark Campbell's squad. Not a deep rotation this year. Haley Van Lith, I think especially. Sedona Prince playing a ton of minutes. In the fourth quarter, you can see that fatigue kind of set in, and it's a struggle to get quality shots up and hit, 18-foot jumpers when you've been playing 37, 38 minutes on a given night or given afternoon. So we'll keep our eyes on hoops as the week goes on. When we come back, some of your thoughts about yesterday's show. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Yesterday, I talked about Montre Harris, a 3-star edge rusher from Summer Creek, high school teammate of Chad Woodfork, who is a 2025 commit and early enrollee, in fact, is already on campus and will be going through spring ball with TCU. But some of you had thoughts about that pickup and just what TCU has done in general on the defensive line. Vince Pryor said it's always predicated on pressure, talking about the defense. I like the term make them see ghost. I like the defense, the direction it's going. I do too. I like the direction the defense is going as well. Now, still got to execute, and it all sounds good, but I love the priority and the focus on, hey, let's get dudes who can cause problems for QBs, because it's like Vince said, and like I said yesterday, there is nothing that is more detrimental to an offense and their rhythm and their timing and just generally like moving the chains and trying to stay on the field and make plays than constantly having pressure on the quarterback. It will wreck an offense faster than anything else. And it lets your secondary take more risk. It allows you to do some more things scheme-wise. Like, I think it gives you more variety and gives you the freedom to kind of play around with your fronts and send guys from different angles. When when you're in your base stuff, you can still win those battles, and you can get home and make things happen. That makes you feel better about sending blitzes at times. So it all comes together, and I do think these guys are exciting. It's probably going to take some time, right, for it to come full circle. But hopefully this year we see another step forward with what they built on with Devin Deal and Cooper McDonald this past season. Born Calm says, I love what Avalos and Sonny are building on the D-line. We have the high-end talent like Ford and Buck, but also lots of great depth. Can't wait to see the monsters they got on the O-line. Yeah, I mean, that'll be, another focus for this class too. I imagine they go a little lighter on numbers on O-line just because they've been so heavily focused on it in the past 2 recruiting cycles. But one thing that's been clear since Sonny got the job is that is a place where they want to load up as much as possible. And I think, Brian Smith, who's our recruiting expert here at the Locked On Network, he told me before, he's like, offensive line evaluations are really tough. And honestly, a lot of it is just you bring in as many talented guys in the room as you can, and you put them in the, strength and conditioning program, and you start getting them reps, and you just see who ends up kind of rising to the top and proving you right when it comes to evaluating. Landman says 2026 is looking like a super class. I think they're doing a great job right now of finding players that make sense and make things happen. Frog Fan says Savion reminds me of Kadarius Toney, where he could be a wide receiver or running back. Yeah, that's a decent comp. I talked about Cordell Patterson yesterday, and Deebo Samuel is obviously one that comes up too. Again, I just think the thing for Savion is, can he be consistent as a wide receiver? Like, it's awesome that he can do a lot of different things well, but can he really hone in on what his main focus is? And if he can do that, he's going to be an even more dangerous playmaker and player moving forward. And Jacob Langford wanted to remind me about men's tennis, currently ranked number 2 in the nation, and they have the indoor tennis tournament coming up. Yeah, qualified for that with wins over Pacific and then Michigan State. Had a big win over Baylor a couple weeks ago. So David Roditi squad, defending national champs in the big outdoor season, and have won a couple of national titles in the indoor as well. They're gearing up to do it again. So we'll have plenty of coverage of that program as well. Thank you, Jacob, for always reminding me about the men's tennis program, which is always super successful. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or on your favorite podcast platform. It's your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.